In 2014, HMRC released this. It's a list. It's an amazing list of genuine excuses that people gave as to why they'd submitted their tax returns late. Someone's goldfish died, a farmer had a run-in with a cow, my bad back means that I can't go upstairs and that's where my tax return is. I mean, that's pretty valid. My favourite one's this one from a financial services firm in Kent. Our business doesn't do all that much. I mean, don't we know it? But it's when this list was made that I think is the most amusing. 2014. That just so happens to be the year that HMRC abandoned their decade-long advertising campaign that claimed
self-assessment. Tax doesn't have to be taxing.
Tax has always been taxing. But today I'm going to show you how the tax system in the UK, through a failure to educate and inform, through failures around service levels, and most frustratingly, through a failure to evolve and keep up with modern technology, is costing the British public billions a year that it shouldn't. And I'm also going to show you what you can do about it.
The new head of the tax had the nerve to say that,
Tax doesn't have to be taxing.
Will you have anything to fear?
The thing is, though, it's not the first time that HMRC have messed up in this way.
Oh, I wish tax was simpler, yes.
Let's start with the big one. When was the last time you filled out one of these? People of a certain age are going to wonder, what's the big deal? And there's going to be some of you out there that are going to look at that and go, what the hell is that? Well, it's a cheque. The first ones date back to the 9th century, but these things became really popular in the 90s. But then these became widely available, and then these did. Cheques, in a way, represent the rapid development in technology that I've seen in my lifetime. They straddled the borders of digitalisation. They're antiques of an antiquated system, sort of like overhead projectors and floppy disks. They are still in use. Nans absolutely everywhere whip out their chequebooks to send £5 to kids at Christmas. But the decline in their circulation has been rapid. In 2006, in the UK alone, 1.6 billion cheques were issued. In 2021, that's fallen to 150 million, and that amount drops by about 20% a year. In an increasing number of countries, cheques have either become a marginal payment system or have been completely phased out. Dan Needle, a tax lawyer, said that cheques were somewhere between a hassle and a security risk. But until very recently, HMRC clung on tightly to the use of these. In 2022 alone, they sent out 5 million. That's a cheque every 6 seconds. Of the 5 million cheques sent by HMRC in 2022, as of November 2023, 615,383 hadn't been cashed. Those cheques are worth around £217 million. This isn't a blip either. The figures are the same every year. Over £1 billion remains unclaimed between 2018 and 2023. I could sit here and just go, cash your cheque, but I gotta be honest with you about something. Sat right here on my desk, this is a cheque for £80 from American Express. I need to cash it. It's been here for months. I mean, here's another one. Here's another one. It's the same one. They just keep sending me this cheque going, are you going to cash this cheque or not? The whole thing is the cheques are upstairs and my bank's downstairs somewhere. So, what do you want me to do? I'm clearly just lazy, but I've found Reddit threads of people receiving HMRC cheques and genuinely asking, what do I do with this thing? Now, to be fair to HMRC, they realised and they listened. In mid-2024, they made some changes. It's probably easier if I just show you this bit. You don't want to know what I went through to get hold of one of these things. Forgot how loud they were as well. But anyway, with the old system, you would get a letter through the post called a P800 letter, I believe, and it would prompt you to go onto a website. The website looked like this. Whoa, sliding all over the place. Well, I think the website would have been a little bit less blurry than that. Can you actually see that or not? I'll get my editor to put up what the actual website looked like, but I did a 3-hour round trip to get hold of this, so, we're going to use it. Once you went on the website, you would have to click this button right here. Touchscreen's not working for some reason. If you were like me and you couldn't click the button or you didn't, within 21 days, you would get a cheque through the post. Let's go back to the normal way, shall we? Because this thing's terrible. There's a reason we got rid of these. But now it's all changed. So you get the P800 letter still, but crucially, you still have to act. You have to go on to HMRC's website and then make the claim, or you won't get the refund. You won't even get the automatic cheque anymore by the looks of it. Criticism of the new scheme pointed out that many now expect the cheque. So if they don't get one, they assume that they've not got a refund. I know many of you will go, well, just make the claim. But what I want to know is, and there's probably a really good reason for this, but why can't HMRC just pay people without the need for effort on their part? Why can't they adjust the tax code, say, so you pay less tax next year? If you owe them between £50 and £2,999, they adjust your tax code and take it automatically. When we know that cheques result in 1 in 10 not cashing them, why introduce a new system whereby you only get your refund if you make the claim? It just creates a system whereby you know some people won't claim. It's a barrier to getting people their money back. Speaking of barriers, are you familiar with this little beat? Sounds a bit like a polyphonic ringtone from back in the day, if you know you know. It's of course HMRC's hold music. And anyone who's ever tried to call them knows all too well the uniquely funky rhythmic torture that is this little beat on repeat. I found figures here that detail just how many people are affected by this, and it's pretty shocking, so I wanted to share it with you. I'm in a hotel in London, but yeah, these numbers. So HMRC came out and said that last year, in January, 3.7 million calls were received in that month alone. But more than 800,000 of these calls were abandoned. So abandoned means that the person never got to speak to someone. They either hung up because they were waiting for too long, or HMRC themselves admit to the fact that if a taxpayer waits over 70 minutes to speak to someone, then the call will be automatically disconnected. That is shocking. This is the phone line that people call to get advice on their taxes, for help, to query things so that they can avoid fines and do things correctly. And it says here that, they just cut you off after 70 minutes. How does that help people do their taxes properly? They tend to be quite secretive about the amount that they make from late payments each year. But in July 2024, a Freedom of Information request from AJ Bell revealed that around 188 million in fines had been paid so far for that period. You can be fined for both filing your taxes late and paying your taxes late, but the rates of fines on each are very different. If you file your taxes late, and by that I mean submitting your tax return after the 31st of January, you'll pay an initial £100 fixed penalty from day one, even if you don't owe any tax or you've already paid the tax you owe. If 3 months go by and you've still not done your tax return, you'll have to cough up £10 per day, up to a maximum of £900. Then after 6 months, you'll face a £300 penalty or 5% of however much tax is due, whichever is greater. And after 12 months, you'll be hit by the same again, 5% or a £300 charge. And honestly, at this point, you'd think HMRC would be like, well, maybe fining this person more isn't the answer here. Then there's fines associated with not paying the bill. They charge you an interest based on the Bank of England's base rate plus 2.5%. As I'm telling you this, the base rate's 4.75%, so that means you pay 7.25% interest to HMRC. But here's the kicker, right? If HMRC owe you money, they'll pay you a rate of interest on it, great, but not the same that they charge you. They give you base rate minus 1%, so that's 3.75% at the time of recording this. What are the incentives here then? HMRC themselves say that the late payment interest rate encourages prompt payment and ensures fairness for all those who pay on time. And the repayment interest rate compensates taxpayers fairly for loss or use of their money. Is it fair that they charge a rate of interest at double what they give you? The Chartered Institute of Taxation has urged the government to review the unfair repayment interest rates. Taxpayers are facing late payment bills from HMRC up to 17 times higher than what is returned to those who have overpaid. The decision to wipe 30,000 fines recently was because HMRC simply could not cope with the volume of traffic and the amount of calls they were getting. I know many will say, just fill out your tax return and pay on time, but for the newly self-employed or for those who were not aware that they even needed to do a self-assessment in the first place, this can be a confusing process, right? We can't assume that everyone just knows what they should do, and if you look at the instructions on how you should do it, HMRC's guide on how to fill out a self-assessment is 25,900 words. My university dissertation in the application of brand communities in building consumer loyalty in large corporations was less words than that. This video right here, where I'm sitting here chatting about goldfish and, projectors, this will be about 3,000 words. We help the honest majority to get their taxes right. Yet from my perspective, the information given to the public is dense and unapproachable, and the support lines offered subject the public to what could be argued by certain international bodies as music torture. If the system really help them, the honest majority, to get their tax right, would we really have 1.3 billion left on the table between 2016 and 2021 from people who didn't realise that they needed to claim higher rate tax relief from their pensions? I go on about this all the time, but just look at this comment. There are people watching this video right now, thousands of you, that are not claiming this tax relief. If your pension is relief at source, call HMRC, write to them, pager, pigeon, goddamn smoke signal, whatever, just get your money back off them. And, Why, HMRC, are you not telling pension providers that they need to tell their customers that this is the case? That they should claim this money back? I had a session with a company the other day when I go into businesses and talk to their staff about personal finances. The CEO didn't realise this was the case. He runs the business, a highly successful company. He is smart. He just didn't know. Because the thing about taxes, right? Being intelligent is not enough. If you don't know, you don't know. They might as well be speaking a different language or, be speaking in code. Or looking at a random sequence of letters like this line of code. If I told you that if you crack this code, I'll give you 5.8 billion, would you be interested? That's the exact offer on the table for the UK public right now. This random line of letters represents characters from the UK tax code. We all have these applied to every single income that we receive. 18% of adults have never checked their tax code. Here is a full list of the majority of tax codes in the UK. I've linked this below. Do me a favour, please go and check yours. Because according to a study of 2,000 adults, 31% of those who check their tax code have found errors at some point, including 6% in the last 12 months. In true tax fashion, 75% of those who found a wrong code were overpaying HMRC. If you're part of the potentially 25% of people who go away, check your tax code, and realise that you're underpaying HMRC, well, I can only apologise for that. I'm sorry. Let's move on. Did you know that there was something called a marriage allowance? So it can save couples up to £252 a year if you're married or in a civil partnership. But according to the Institute of Family Studies, not many people actually know about it because 2.4 billion of it has been left unclaimed. So let's imagine that I earn £40,000 a year and I have a wife who is a stay-at-home mom. And because she doesn't earn a salary, she can transfer up to 10% of her personal allowance to me. Which is great, but why don't many people claim it? The Institute for Family Studies puts it down to two main reasons. The marriage allowance is seen as a token at best, worth little more than a few £100s. It's also very complex to claim through an annual tax assessment rather than paid upfront in cash. But if you think you're eligible, you may be able to claim it without filling out a tax return. You can apply online via the government website. It might be a bit of a faff, but that's money better off in your bank account than it is in the government's bank account at the end of the day. Okay, while we're at it then, let's go through a load of quick-fire ones like this where people are leaving tons of money on the table. Just a few examples of unclaimed taxes and allowances and things. So approximately 7.5 billion of universal credit goes unclaimed by 1.2 million eligible households each year. An estimated 1.7 billion in pension credits for lower earners went unclaimed in the year 2019-2020. And a total of 1.7 billion in child trust funds, set up for children who were born between 2002 and 2011, remains unclaimed. There's 2.5 billion in working tax credits that's not claimed by eligible workers, and 2.4 billion in child tax credits goes unclaimed by people with children. I could go on with these, but the video would just be too long. HMRC have many failings. The tax system as a whole is full of failings. I've included some rather old school tech in this video just to point to really HMRC's tendency to not keep up with the times, and a nod to how antiquated and outdated our tax system really is. But here's another one for you. So this is a replica typewriter. If you've not seen one of these before, you'd probably know what it did because of one highly recognisable feature, its QWERTY keyboard. The QWERTY keyboard first went into mass production in 1874, and there's so many legends that surround it. One being that it was actually designed to slow typists down, which is kind of crazy to think about, isn't it? So the theory is that when typists were typing really quickly and they were hitting keys next to each other, the hammers would hit the paper at the same time and you would get misprints. I'm not sure if those technical description was correct, but a system designed to slow people down. When I think about HMRC, the cynic in me wants to go, this is the same as that. The checks, the hold times. This is a system trying to make it hard for people to get their tax money back. But I think a bit of balance is needed here. Not to mention the fact that the QWERTY story is complete nonsense. It's not true at all. The E and the R being next to each other debunks the idea of commonly used letters being separated to slow typists down. I think there's another story about the QWERTY keyboard that applies to HMRC here, and this one's actually true. The Dovrak keyboard was introduced in 1936 as a more efficient and ergonomic alternative to the QWERTY, but it never caught on because QWERTY was so embedded across the economy. Businesses and individuals were just used to the QWERTY keyboard. It was a well-established system that was hard to change. We prioritise legacy compatibility over efficiency. Mass institutional inertia prevented productive change. And even though a better system exists, we persist with this legacy one that costs people time and money every day. Because changing, could take a lot of time and effort. Am I talking about HMRC or am I talking about the QWERTY keyboard? HMRC and our tax code has a lot of failings. If they're intentional or if they're a product of a slow and complex system that's hard to change, I'll let you decide. But the reality is the change won't come quickly. I was hoping for radical tax reform from the Labour government when they came in, but yeah, so far nothing. So just please make sure then, until they do change it, if they ever do, that you're on top of your taxes. Check your tax code and make sure you're maximising any allowances available to you. Don't leave money on the table. Cash your cheques, fill out the forms. Because the points I've outlined today total up to tens of billions a year that the British public are leaving on the table that they don't need to. So what I've done is I've listed everything below that you need to check your allowances, to check your tax code, to make the claims back if you do need to do it. No more excuses. Well, let me give you one more excuse as an absolute classic. Someone wrote in and said that my mother-in-law is a witch. She's always in the kitchen with a cauldron bubbling away, making weird chanting noises, and it's pretty obvious that she's put a curse on me. Classic. Doesn't even work. Buttons are fake. It's all fake.